Hey, welcome back to the Bionicle Inspiration Series. We are the Takanuva of your Toa team. We're like a tower of light. We're lighting the way. We're giving you the light of inspiration to inspire you to build your own cool Bionicle stuff. And specifically giving you some ideas for some Matoran. So this is part 2 of our coverage of a really cool Bionicle collab within the community of late. It's from a bunch of different builders. If you haven't watched part 1, be sure to check it out. This specific collab, it's about Matoran, but the idea of it is hard-working citizens. So it's a bunch of Matoran just doing their jobs around Maranui, city to city, just making money, having a good time, and doing what they love best, we hope. Maybe some of them aren't happy in their jobs, who knows? But these are some really cool MOCs. All of which are filled with some beautiful storytelling and personality and all sorts of good stuff. Enough that can hopefully inspire you if you want to build some Matoran, or hey, maybe some of these ideas could inspire you for Toa or other kinds of creatures, characters, and all sorts of different stuff. So let's dive in today to the very first hardworking citizen of this part 2 episode, and this is Koto the Ice Carver by Socket Ball. Now, I love this. I love the idea of him being an ice carver. You know, it makes sense, of course, if he's a Kokoro Matoran from the icy plains, the icy mountains and stuff. He's taking the ice and he's turning it into art. That's a really cool idea. And even cooler because Socket Ball is a guy here who specializes in making his own custom masks. He's a god at it. He does some fantastic stuff. I've put a link in the description to his store if you'd like to buy some. Be sure to check it out. He makes some incredible stuff. And we can see some examples of that here in this MOC, whether that's the mask of this character or the mask that he's carving here. And really cool to see a trans-clear How, Tahu's mask there. That looks awesome and seems very fitting for ice. You know, it just, the way he's molded it here to give it this specific color, it makes sense that it would be an ice carving of sorts. It's really, really cool. So it's always lovely to see how Socket Ball manages to sneak in some of his custom masks into his MOCs. And I think this is a brilliant way of doing it because it's such beautiful justification of the choice of color on this mask here. It's really, really cool. I also love this crazy weird like arm design here. Kind of just a whole bunch of weird connections using these interesting kind of light bluish gray pieces that, you know, have the sort of 2+ connections on the side there, but then sort of kind of directly in the opposite direction is the sort of circle joint or pin connector thing there. It's cool. It's a really, really nice piece. A bunch of them came on Witch Doctor and a few other different sets here and there. It's just a really cool piece. It's interesting to see that sort of tubing feeding through it and just kind of the way it connects. I don't know, I've never seen an arm design like that, and it looks really cool. Something almost kind of retro about it, and another way that it's kind of retro here is on the feet, using some of those Uroc neck kind of like gear pieces to give him this like fancy shoe. Maybe it's kind of like a snow boot almost. I could see that sort of like rough texture could maybe kind of dig into like, you know, ice or something and give him a bit of sort of traction there. I don't know if that was the intention or not. It still is a really, really nice sort of little foot design there, and it's nice to see some older pieces getting some use as well. It's pretty cool. So love this MOC. I love his little tool kit as well. This is a bit of fun and a great way of justifying a custom mask there. Really, really cool. On to the next hardworking citizen. This is by Patron, and this is talented sculptor Poraru. So I like this too. The idea of, we're kind of seeing that today in this episode a bit, is sort of justifying the craft of this character based on where they live. So of course this is a Kokoro Matoran here, a Toa of stone, and it makes sense that he would get some stone and use it to carve stuff. So I love the fact that he's taken that boulder piece that we originally got with on Part 2, and it's interesting because it does have that sort of more sort of like sharp, refined edges. So it kind of looks like it's maybe someone's been sort of chipping away at it to give it shape. And I love the idea of just slapping on this little tiny, itty-bitty looking Pahatu mask here so that it looks like he's gone to town on the very top of it. Got a perfect looking mask there. He's carved that out of the stone, and now he's going to do the rest of the body and maybe make a Pahatu action figure out of stone. I'd buy it. And you might be like, where does that little mini mask come from? Well, we saw one of these recently on the Bionicle Inspiration Series, sort of, kind of. This comes from an old Bionicle pen. So the pens were kind of cool. You could kind of customize them in some fashion and sort of mix and match them, I believe, with some of the other pens from different characters and things. But this is a Pahatu pen specifically, so you get a little itty-bitty Pahatu mask, which is a really unique piece. And it's lovely to see it here. And again, it seems some beautiful justification to put it in there, since it is a miniature mask and he's making, a miniature model or statue in that sense. Really, really cool. So really cool to see how the hobby fits in with the actual sort of tribe of Matoran in this sense. And something else that I think kind of relates to that is the choice of giving him this sort of like waistcoat. Now this comes from the Shore Trooper, Beach Trooper, Scarif Trooper, Coastal Defense Trooper, whatever you want to call them, from Rogue One, the Star Wars Ultra Build Lego set. And it's that sort of interesting kind of cloth material there. What's cool about it is it has that sort of like pouch, which is, I don't really know what that specific point of that is on an actual Shore Trooper from Star Wars. I'm sure some Wikipedia or Wookiepedia warriors can look that up and let me know. But I imagine it's for like storing ammo or something. But it's nice. It's kind of repurposed here. You can see it is sort of his carving utensils maybe go in there. He puts the chisels and the picks and stuff in there and swaps it out when he needs it. So it's cool that sort of seems to fit here. But I also just like the idea of him having that sort of like waistcoat. Whether he's kind of wearing more of like an apron, or maybe that's just the attire that he imagines the Poraru Matorans wear. Kind of reminds me of like Avatar: The Last Airbender, where each of the different nations have very specific attire that has, specific references to actual sort of real world culture. Real world culture. I stumbled on my words there. Yeah, I love that. I kind of really like the idea of reimagining all the Toa, kind of almost Avatar: The Last Airbender inspired, and giving them really distinct, different attire that can kind of tie back to real world culture. Said it right this time. I think it's a really cool idea. I really, really like that. And I don't know if that was the specific intention with using that piece there, but yeah, I kind of get like Earth Nation vibes from that to a degree. It's cool. It's really cool. So love that idea there. Really kind of tying it back to like history and stuff. It's cool. It's really cool. So I love that. Really, really beautiful little mock here. Let's move over to the next one. This is by Ivan Martinov, and this is Glassblower Papaka. Papaka. It's whatever you want it to be. It's a cool name. And I don't know, this is a really different mock, and I like that. What makes it so, distinct is that it's using a bunch of non-official Lego pieces from your bootleg sets, probably Mega Constructs, Mega Blocks, or Creo. I don't know. I'm really not sure where it comes from. Maybe you've got this knockoff brand or something and you're like, I can tell you. I'd be curious to know, but I have no idea. It does not say in the description or in the comments on Flickr. It does not. But, hey, maybe you got a bunch of non-Lego in your collection, and there can be an aversion to that in the community, understandably sometimes. There's certain brands that like to distinctly rip off AFOLs and not give them any money and then sell their product, which is like, yo, I built that, why are you selling it and then giving me no money? Sort of very sketchy behavior. And certain knockoff brands that blatantly rip off what Lego does and then sell it in a different name and are just stealing. So there's some, morally questionable stuff happening with certain bootleg companies, but there's others that make legitimately, unique products of their own accord, and yeah, maybe the quality isn't as good as Lego with the actual pieces, but sometimes it can be close enough. If you want to, that's certainly a route to go down. I myself don't really like doing that. The most I'll dabble in is a few custom minifigures or a nice printed piece that is maybe from a Citizen Brick or an Eclipse Graphics or something. But everyone, to each their own. And hey, maybe you're like, I don't have a lot of Bionicle in my collection, but I got a lot of Mega Construct or whatever this is. Don't be afraid to use it, because like we can see here, you can still build a fantastic mock with it. And hey, it gives you access to some radically different, unique pieces that can give you a radically unique and different mock. So it's something to consider, certainly. I have no idea what this apron is. I don't think that's an official cloth piece, but again, we're dealing with a lot of non-Lego pieces in this, so it's probably a custom cloth or a cloth that comes from a non-Lego set. But it's cool. I like that the fact he's got a little apron on him. It makes sense and seems appropriate for a glass blower of sorts. And again, seems very fitting. He's got red on him, so you can assume he's a Tar Koro fire Matoran there. And you need heat and stuff to make glass, so it makes sense. I also like what he's done with the mask. I imagine those pipe pieces are non-Lego. I'm pretty sure they are. And I like that. I like the idea of just kind of filling in the mask like that. I'm sure there's certain tubing or other pieces you could do that reasonably similar with official pieces. But also just like the idea of kind of filling in some of the gaps on some of those older masks there, just to kind of make it look a little bit different and unique. It's just a cool idea. So yeah, I think a fantastic choice of hobby and just really unique to see, you know, a crazy cool looking foot design using some weird pieces, some interesting kind of like, I don't know, sleeves, I guess, with whatever that piece is. And I think some stuff going on the shoulders too, and a little bit on the torso. It's everywhere. Really nice. Always cool to see some more unique stuff like this. You know, you can't always stick to the norm. It's nice to kind of push the boundaries here and there. So this is really cool. Let's move over to the next MOC now. This is by Corn Builder, and this is Woodworker Liku. I love this. Again, another one that seems so fitting. You've got a Likoro Matoran of air, and, you know, of course, they live in jungles and stuff. It makes sense. They'd be like, well, let's cut this tree down and use the wood to make a hut or something like that. So I love the idea that he's got his saw out and he's cutting up a piece of wood like that. Just makes sense. So again, a really fitting hobby for the character there. And yeah, I guess that's certainly something to consider if you're building a MOC and they're of a specific, you know, tribe, nation, whether that's from the Bionicle universe or not, or they have a specific power set. Can you give them some fun little accessories like this that kind of, I don't know, tell their occupation or give a bit of context or story or something? It could be a bit of fun to play around with system pieces like this and build a buzzsaw, build a nice little log on some supports and stuff, and just go to town and have fun. I think it's a really cool idea. The Matoran himself is pretty stock standard, but he's kind of fun. And I feel like the centerpiece of this is that awesome saw. And it's a fun little weapon. And, you know, hey, it doesn't even need to be an actual utensil. It could be, like I said before, a weapon. You know, maybe it could be some sort of horror-themed thing where someone's coming at you with a saw like that. It could work, So yeah, a bit of fun this MOC here, and a nice example of how you can very effectively use system pieces to make some really beautiful accessories. Some that would probably be a little bit more difficult to do with Bionicle pieces, although I'd like to see people try. It'd be interesting to see a log like this using Bionicle pieces. I guess maybe you could use the Chewbacca fur printed pieces. That might give a bit of a tree-like vibe, perhaps. Maybe. You know, maybe people can have a go at that and send it in, and then I'll do my best to feature it on the show. Regardless, though, a fun little MOC and very fitting of the element of this this little Matoran here. On to the next MOC. This is by Balom Nom Nom or Matt Goldberg, and this is Blacksmith Uroc. That's a tough sounding name. I like that. Sounds like an orc or something. I mean, it kind of has orc if you rearrange the letters there. Anyway, cool MOC. I like this. I love his goggles. So this, of course, this mask here is from one of the original Turaga, but of course it's in red, so it probably came on some of the mask pack sets where you got those masks in different colors. And what's cool about this mask is there's naturally some holes at the top there. And turns out, if you want, you can just shove stuff in them. Phrasing. And it's pretty easy to put like a lightsaber rod or any kind of bar minifigure accessory piece into that. Or in this case, you can put those fancy schmancy like stud pieces that have the little itty bitty tiny bar sticking out of them there. They're really, really cool pieces. I think sometimes it's called the inkwell piece. I don't know. But it works well. Just sort of slot them in like that, and you get a cool looking kind of goggle effect here. Of course, he's also attached some rubber bands there, just some black ones that I assume are some of... Well, I don't know. I was going to say they're official rubber band pieces, but I can't tell you the difference between a non-official black rubber band or an official black rubber band piece from Lego. I'm going to say it's non-official because the black rubber band pieces break all the time. So it's probably a non-official piece there, but whatever. But it works. It's really, really nice. It's a great way of taking advantage of some of the natural gaps in those masks and creating a really cool looking kind of goggle look. It's very fitting for the character, and it's just a really clever design there. Really, really nice. And don't be afraid to play around with rubber bands like that. I love how that really like just tops this technique off. Because sure, you could just put them in there and it would work. But putting the rubber bands around there, it suddenly actually looks like goggles instead of just, I don't know, something that's on the top of his head. Lovely design there. I think it's really cool. Also, his hammer and his big old anvil here. Fantastic little, brick-built accessories here. They look brilliant. And again, another hobby that seems very fitting for the character. Again, he's got red on him, so I can assume he's from Tarkoro. I suppose I shouldn't stereotype and assume where he's from. I don't know, but it really was the lore of Bionicle, wasn't it? That the people from specific places, you know that because of their color. Be better, Lego. Come on now. But look, if he is a Tarkoro Matoran, we don't know, but assuming, making an ass out of you and me and assuming, but if we are, he's, living in volcanoes and other kind of lava magma-filled places, and, you need your heat and stuff to do your blacksmithing and stuff like that. So again, very fitting and very, very cool. And maybe they're like the armorer from the Mandalorian, and they use their crafting tools to mess people up. So, yeah, it's cool. I like this. Very, very nice mock here. And I like the torso, the fact it's just a big old fist there. It's just a little nice way of using that piece there and integrating it in a way that isn't just a fist. Works well. On to the second last mock now. This is by Ryan Z, and this is Astro the Explorer. So I like this. Who says your hardworking citizens need to stay on the planet? They can go elsewhere. They can be in spacesuits and all sorts of craziness. I think this is great. Some of my favorite stuff about this is not only the mask. I like seeing some of those older masks being used, especially on Matoran. It just kind of makes sense. And of course, this mask here came on this specific Taraga, but again, probably came from your mask packs and came in some different colors and stuff. So makes sense. What I like about this though is the exaggerated hands. They're massive. They're cool. And they use some of those macaroni pieces that came on our boy Chibi Tahu and a bunch of different sets as well. Obviously, they're in a different color, but they're very useful pieces there. Useful and versatile. That's why I stumbled there before I said the word. I was going to combine them together, and now I'm saying them separately. Useful and versatile pieces. What I also like about this is the fact that, yeah, like I said, the arms are massive. It kind of reminds me of the whole concept of a caricature. And I'm not just mispronouncing character, that is a thing. So caricature, as it says on Wikipedia here, a caricature is a rendered image showing the features of its subject in a simplified or exaggerated way through sketching, pencil strokes, or other artistic drawings. Or in this case, Lego. I don't think this is inherently necessarily looking like a caricature of sorts, but it's certainly taking that idea of expanding some of the more distinct attributes of the character and making them a bit bigger just for sort of emphasis and stuff, So I like the idea of, hey, they're an explorer. They probably use their hands a lot to traverse around terrain or pick up artifacts or whatever. So it kind of makes sense that they have really big old hands, because that's a thing that they probably use a lot. So if you're sort of making an artistic interpretation of them, it will emphasize the hands a bit. And I like that. Because sure, it's nice to stick to your strict normal proportions and stuff, but why not go a more interesting artistic route and sort of enlarge a certain thing or kind of more heavily emphasize it in some fashion and use it as a sort of storytelling device to be okay, the character uses this a lot, so hey, they're bigger, whatever, I think it's cool. Or he's just wearing a spacesuit that's got big old arms, whatever. Or this is a distinctly different race of Matoran from outer space that have bigger hands, or whatever, You can have whatever justification you want for it. Either way, it looks cool, and it's a nice hand design, so it's pretty cool. So I love this. It also uses those beautiful Django Fett printed sand blue armor pieces, which have come up a few times in BIS now. I love them. They're cool pieces, beautiful printing on them. And almost every mock we see them in, it just works well. Fantastic piece. Fantastic set. On to the last mock now. This is by Joxon, and this is Chief Engineer Nuparu. So this certainly seems to be taking a bit of inspiration from the old Boxer set, which was kind of your Matoran in a sort of mech suit of sorts. Really cool set. I remember getting that as a kid. Loved it. And it's a different take on the character, and I love it. Again, using those macaroni pieces that we saw before that come on Tahu and a bunch of other sets. And it's creating this roll cage design of sorts. I don't know, it just looks cool, He certainly looks nice and snug and very well protected in here. I can certainly imagine this guy running around caves, jumping and leaping across canyons, well, not canyons, but caverns, that's the word, and being heavily protected from any sort of falling debris or whatever might come his way. It's just some cool looking mining armor. I think it's just really distinct and different. It's cool. It's kind of similar to what we were saying before with the different nations' attire and stuff. It's well, how has this specific race decided, okay, we're going to make mining armor or mech suits to help us with our, mining jobs and stuff? Well, this is the design that they've come up with. It's different from our real world because this is our fun imaginary world. Let's come up with a different way of doing it instead of, oh, they built a big old drill. Yeah, whatever, That's way more fun, and I like that. I also love the hand and finger design here. Very distinct, very different. Looks very posable too, but my favorite thing is the little ball joints on the edges of the finger there. Looks like little sort of gription or something. You can totally see how that would, really grip into some rocks or something as it's climbing around or something like that. I think it's just a very clever little fun design and a nice way of just sort of rounding off the end of it there. Really, really cool. The pickaxe is a fantastic design as well. Love how that looks here. And again, I'm sure he maybe has to use it to fight off some Rahi or something that are getting in the mines. So another fun offensive weapon there that I'm sure you could adapt for your own MOCs. Very, very cool. So yeah, I absolutely adore this. In typical Joxon fashion, it's using pieces in some absolutely beautiful, gorgeous ways, playing with textures in some lovely ways, and just, well, it looks fantastic. He's done a brilliant job. And so have all the builders in this episode today. So thank you very much for sticking it out for part 2 of this collab. Hope you enjoyed seeing all these hardworking citizens, and thank you to all the hardworking builders that built these hardworking citizens. You guys did a bang-up job. Love your work. And that goes for all the builders in part 1 and part 2. So by all means, if you've only watched part 2, you've only watched part 1, well, you wouldn't be here if you've only watched part 1, but you know what I mean. Go watch that other part. Have a good time. There's some brilliant builds. You'll love them. Check the links in the description for all the builders you saw in today's episode, and maybe see some of the other stuff that they've done. Additionally, there's links to my own social media, so if you want to see some of the stuff that I've got going on, I'm Ben Cossy on all forms of social media, so check that out. There's also the submission email. It's on your screen right now, and you can copy and paste it in the description below. So if you would like to submit your own collab or some of your own MOCs to be featured on the show, send them to that email, and I'll do my best to put them on the show when I can. Otherwise, if you're interested in joining my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, you can have access to some exclusive behind-the-scenes content, additional videos like Q&As and podcasts, access to my private Discord server, and much, much more. And if you want to send anything my way, here is my P.O. box, but you're under no obligation to do so, only if you got something you're itching to send to me, and you're keen for me to do a video about it or something. That's the way to do it. Thank you very much again for watching. I hope you very much enjoyed. Love you tons. Thanks for your support. Always appreciate it. Thank you, and good night.